made a mistake. Be turning in your Bible to the book of Joshua chapter 1. Joshua chapter 1. And I'm going to read the very first 8 verses of Joshua chapter 1. It is so important for us to grasp a functional understanding of the Word of God. Amen. When you leave the assembly every week, I want you to leave being able to go and actually do something with what you have learned, and that which you are able to do will help make you a better person. Joshua chapter 1 and verse number 1. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, cross this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and as far as the great sea toward the setting of the sun will be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. Amen. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous and you will have success. Joshua became the leader when Moses died. Think about the millions of people that Moses was leading, and he had been unsuccessful. Have you ever had to take over a mission when your predecessor had failed? What an awesome responsibility that Joshua is facing at this time. But the good news is that spiritual meditation transformed Joshua into a champion for God. Spiritual meditation transformed Joshua into a champion for God. Look at verse 8 again. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall do what? Meditate on it day and night. Amen. Well, why? So that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. Then you will make your way prosperous. Amen. And you will have success. Yeah. Spiritual meditation transformed him into a champion for God. What I really want to tell you today is this, that through the personal experience of spiritual meditation, God will transform believers into champions for God. Amen. Unfortunately, God doesn't have many champions. Right. There are a lot of soldiers, but we haven't risen to the champion level. Right. Many Christians, when we began to call on them to perform, they simply want to remind you that they haven't gotten to the place where they ought to be. Right. God needs some champions. It's champions who are remembered. Now, no doubt there are some athletic champions in your mind. There was an Olympic champion years ago by the name of Jesse Owens. And you know what? I have never known the name of the person he beat, because we only remember who? The champions. Have no idea. Muhammad Ali was heavyweight champion on a number of occasions. I can't tell you that many of those whom he defeated. God needs some champions, and he wants to transform us into champions for him, but he cannot do it unless he get us to engage in spiritual meditation. God transforms believers into champions for him. Do you realize that the distance between you and your championship status is whether or not you are willing to spiritually meditate? That's right. Do you realize that you can be the champion that you have admired in others if God can persuade you to engage in spiritual meditation? Listen, what God can do with you if you will engage in spiritual meditation, he will never ever be able to do with you if you don't. You know the routine. There are children in school. The teacher can never do with a student who will not study what they could have done with a student who would study. And God cannot do with us what he can do if we will engage in spiritual meditation. He wants us to be an active participant in spiritual meditation. And I know when I make that statement, and we did some introductory lessons several weeks ago, the question comes up, what is the process? What is the process? How is the process? Or rather, how does the process work? How does the process of spiritual meditation work? Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take Joshua today, and I'm going to show you how it works. And then next week, we're going to take a man by the name of Gideon and show you how it works. And then we're going to take a man by the name of David and show you how it works. And it worked the same way for each one of them. And it's right in the Bible. And you, after 3 good illustrations of that, then we ought to be convinced to imitate them, and God will make a champion out of us. All right? Now, here's the first thing we've got to do. Engage in spiritual meditation through success words. Engage in spiritual meditation through success words. Well, what are success words? Success words are words that propel us forward. Therefore, it's really not the word, but it is how we interact and respond to the word. Now, you may have had an experience like this, and you may have known someone who had an experience like this. They didn't study, and they failed a test. And they decided, I will never let that happen again. Well, then for them, that they may have taken that F that they made and staple it up on the wall. And every time they see that F, it motivates them to study and be prepared. So guess what? Failure words became success words for them. So we've got to do what? Engage in spiritual meditation. And how do we do that? Through success words. Let's say that together. Through success words. Say it again. Through success words. Louder. Through success words. That's how we engage in spiritual meditation. Now, let me show you that that's exactly what Joshua did. All right? So here's what we've got to do. If we're going to engage in success words, we have to, number one, position ourselves to hear success words. Yeah. So you got to find out where are success words being spoken. That's right. And then do what? Put yourself there to hear it. Right. You've ever been to a seminar? That's what you did that for. Yeah. Success words. Okay? Now let me show you Joshua did that. Open your Bible to Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy chapter 31. Joshua positioned himself to hear success words. Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy chapter 31 and verse number 1. So Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel. He said to them, I am 120 years old today. I am no longer able to come and go, and the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross this Jordan. It is the Lord your God who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who will cross ahead of you, just as the Lord has spoken. You see that? Now look at verse 4. The Lord will do to them just as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and to their land when he destroyed them. The Lord will deliver them up before you, and you shall do to them according to all the commandments which I have commanded you. Now look at verse 6. Deuteronomy 31 and verse 6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Then Moses called to Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall give it to them as an inheritance. The Lord is the one who goes ahead of you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Now, what's just happened? Joshua has done what? Heard success words. He just heard success words. What would have happened if when Moses called for Joshua, he didn't show up? He wouldn't have heard the success words. So the first thing you've got to do, I'm getting you through the process now. You've got to position yourself to do what? Hear success words. Do you know what happens when we have difficulties in life? You ever heard people say misery loves company? We go find somebody else that's as miserable as we are, and then we start matching misery, and guess what? We feel worse and worse. But we've got to learn to go find success words. So we've got to position ourselves to do what? Hear success words. Let's say that. Hear success words. Say it again. Hear success words. Say it again. Hear success words. All right. Now I'm walking you through the process now. You got to position yourself to do what? Hear success words. Now here's the second thing you've got to do. You got to power yourself to speak success words. Amen. You've got to power yourself to speak success words. You've got to power yourself to speak success words. Now watch this. Go to Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13 and verse 25. Numbers chapter 13 and verse number 25. You've got to power yourself to speak success words. Numbers chapter 13 and verse number 25. All right, now watch the text carefully. Now, Joshua was one of the 12 that went to spy out the land of Canaan. When they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. Now, this is the 12 spies has returned, and Joshua was one of them. Now, go on down to chapter 14, Numbers chapter 14 and verse number 6. Numbers 14 and verse number 6. What's the first word we pick up? Joshua. Numbers 14 and verse 6. Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, of those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly great land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will what? Bring us into this land and give it to us. It's a land that floweth with milk and honey. So what is Joshua now doing? He's speaking success words. He's speaking success words. He heard success words, and then what is he now doing? Speaking success words. Do you know what happened to us when we first faced adversity? We start stating the problem. We need to learn to speak success words. Now here's what happens sometimes. We start looking for somebody to speak the success words to us. But guess what? You've got to learn how to speak the success words to yourself. Amen. See, if you are always dependent upon somebody else to get you there, you are always at their mercy. That's right. You say, but it just sounds so much better when somebody else say it. Really? You don't believe that. You don't believe that. Listen, you need to learn to write down success words so you can read them and say them. Listen, we need to get to the point where what we say about ourselves is more powerful than what anybody else say about us. Yeah. See, the devil wants us to be held hostage and crippled waiting on someone else. You say, well, I just don't know how I can say it to myself. And it works. Let me show you how it works. Yesterday, I went to the mailbox. I had heard that people were going to get a stimulus check. I'd heard that. And I've talked to some folk who said they've gotten theirs. And I went on the IRS website, and the IRS website said, you're going to get a check. That's what's on the website. That's right. Yesterday, I went to the mailbox, and the check was in there. And I looked at the check and said, I have a check. Guess what? I was far more motivated by hearing what I said than what everybody else had said. Now, it sounded good when everybody else said that you're going to get a check. But I rode away from the post office saying, I have a check. Man, I was motivated. I motivated myself. So what God wants us to do is to position ourselves to hear success words and then position ourselves to speak success words. And guess what? That's how we engage in spiritual meditation. All right. Now, what's the process? Now, you got to learn this process because you got to go home and do it. Because now, if you ever call me up and you are depressed and discouraged, I'm telling you now, I'm going to ask you, have you meditated? And I'm going to ask you, what have you been saying to yourself? And if you have not been meditating, if you have not been speaking success words to yourself, then I'm going to say, I'm going to let you speak some success words to yourself and then see how it works. And then you call me after it. Yeah, listen, we got to get there. Listen, if you learn how to speak success words to yourself, you are never without motivation. Now watch the process with Joshua. So what's the first thing we've got to do? Now I want to answer. Now what's the first thing we got to do? We got to engage in what? Words. Words. We got to do what? Hear words. And then we got to do what? Speak the words. We got to hear words. So that means every Sunday when you leave the assembly, you need to get in your car, ride home, saying what you just got through hearing me say. If you never say what you heard me say, you will never benefit from the message that I preached. So you can come to church for 30 years and never benefit. You will never benefit until you do what? Start saying what you have heard. All right. So we engage in spiritual meditation, and the process is words. We got to hear words and then do what? Speak words. Now watch this. We got 3 steps here. We got 2 more steps to go. All right. Then we got to engage in spiritual meditation through success images. Through success images. Well, what is a success image? A success image is any image that propels you forward. When you hang that F report card up on your wall, and every time you see that, it reminds you to study and to study hard. Okay? So you've got to engage in spiritual meditation using success images. You know how that's connected? Because words create images. If I were to say to you right now, tell me how to get to your house. You cannot tell me how to get to your house until you bring into your mind an image of going down Whitner and turning on the street and turning on the street. If you cannot see an image of how to get to your house, you cannot tell me. So the words will create images. All right? That's God's design. That's how He has created us. Every time you hear a word. Now, that's why people are aggravated when they hear the N word, because the N word creates an image in their mind. If the N word did not create an image in their mind, they would not be irritated. What would happen if every time you heard the N word, you envisioned snow skiing off of the Colorado mountains and just having fun? You wouldn't be upset. It's the image that it brings about. All right. Now let's watch Joshua, because Joshua illustrates this for us. All right. Let's go to Exodus chapter 17. Exodus chapter 17. We got to position ourselves to see success images. Now, this is so powerful for us. It is powerful in the training of our children. I tell parents, take everything out of your house that's not a success image. Take failure images out of your house. There's a little old image, and it's very popular. There are some paintings, and you might can see this at Walmart, and they sell this. There's a picture of a little boy sitting on a commode, and he has wasted rolls of tissue paper. How many of you seen that? Now watch this. Parents will buy that and put it up in their house, and when their child do that, then beat him. Why would you put a failure image in the house and then discipline the child when he follows it? You ought to put success images everywhere you look. All right? Watch the Bible carefully. Exodus 17 and verse number 8. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us and go out and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself at the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek, and Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it came about when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. Then he took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and named it, the Lord is my banner. And he said, the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war against Amalek from generation to generation. Now watch this image. See, it's amazing. When you read the Bible, pay attention to the images that God provides. Now, here is the image that Joshua received. Moses, if he holds up his hand, God fights the battle for him and they win. When Moses' arms become heavy, Aaron and Hur holds his hand up and they win. And they just put a stone up under it. And guess what? I bet you Joshua never ever forgot that image. That if I can just participate and keep my hand up, God will fight the battle. So Joshua positioned himself to see success images. Seeing success images. Seeing success images. And then you got to power yourself to create and show success images. Go with me to Numbers chapter 14. Numbers chapter 14. See, it's not just enough to see success images. You've got to learn to create success images. You've got to learn to participate. See, God requires us to participate in the success that we desire. Now, too many people have heard this statement, let go and let God. That's not a biblical statement. There's nothing in the Bible that says just let go and let God do it all. No, God invites us and he charges us to participate. What do you think about some parents who say, we want a child, so we're just going to let go and let God? You're not going to ever have any children with that mentality. All right, watch the Bible carefully. Okay, Numbers chapter 14 and verse number 5. Numbers chapter 14 and verse number 5. Notice what happens. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in the presence of all the assembly of the congregation of the sons of Israel. Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord and do not fear the people of the land, for they will be our prey. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Now look at verse 10. But all the congregation said to them, stone them with stones. Then the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the sons of Israel. The glory of the Lord appeared. Amen. See, that's a success image. The glory. Now let me illustrate that. Imagine you are being held hostage. You are being held hostage. Any of you have been kidnapped? I don't want to use something that's too sensitive. But imagine being kidnapped and your kidnappers are holding you hostage in the woods off of a dirt road. And they have held you hostage for 2 or 3 days. And you are wondering whether or not you are ever going to be rescued. And one day you look up and there is a huge cloud of dust moving in your direction down the road. What does that cloud of dust say to you? I'm going to be rescued. My rescue has appeared in the cloud. So when the glory of the Lord appears in a cloud, that's a success image. So Joshua, he saw success images and he created success images. All right. So now here's the process. We meditate through what? Words. And the words do what? Create images. And now here's the third step in the process. Engage in spiritual meditation with success emotions. With success emotions. Here is what happened. Now here's the process. This is how God has created us. And if we try to violate this, it doesn't work. But if we cooperate with God, it works. God has created us that through words, success words, we gather success words. These success words generate success images, and the success images grow success emotions. Success emotions. Now, watch this with Joshua. This is the process. He positioned himself to capture success emotions. All right, journey with me to Exodus 17. Exodus 17. Listen, I can tell the quality of life that you have if you tell me what you shout about. You tell me what you shout about, I can tell you the quality of life. If you only shout about the NBA winning a game, then your life rises no greater than the NBA. And guess what? The NBA doesn't go out of its way to help you at all. Okay? If all you get excited about is an NBA game, but if you get excited about the Lord goes out of his way to help us. Now watch the Bible carefully. Exodus 17 and verse number 8. Exodus chapter 17 and verse number 8. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel. Did I say Exodus 17? All right. And did I say verse 8? Yes. Okay. All right. Oh, we just read that story a moment ago. Now watch this. Well, let's go a little further than that. Okay. We read down through verse 10. So let's pick up at verse 11. Exodus 17 and verse 11. So it came about when Moses held up his hands that Israel prevailed, and when he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. Then they took a stone and put it under him and sat on it, and he sat on it, and Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sun set. Then Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Verse 15, Moses built an altar and named it, the Lord is my banner. Now go to Exodus chapter 24. Exodus chapter 24 and verse number 12. Exodus 24 and verse number 12. Exodus 24 and verse number 12. I want you to see that Joshua, he captured success emotions. Exodus 24 and verse number 12. Exodus 24 and verse number 12. Now the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and remain there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the law and the commandments which I have written for their instructions. So Moses arose with Joshua his servant, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. But to the elders he said, wait here for us until we return to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a legal matter, let him approach them. Then Moses went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. And the glory of the Lord rested on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the seventh day he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud, and to the eyes of the sons of Israel, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. Moses entered the midst of the cloud as he went up to the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Now go on over to Exodus chapter 32. Exodus chapter 32. And let's pick up these emotions, these success emotions that Joshua captured. Exodus chapter 32 and verse number 15. Exodus 32 and verse number 15. Exodus chapter 32 and verse number 15. Watch the Bible carefully. Exodus 32, verse 15. Then Moses returned and went down from the mountains with the 2 tablets of the tables in his hand. Tablets which were written on both sides. They were written on one side and on the other. The tablets were God's work, and the writing was God's writing engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the sounds of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a sound of war in the camp. But he said, it is not the sound of the cry of triumph, nor is it the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear. Now watch this. Moses and Joshua is coming down the mountain, and what do they hear? They hear emotional expressions in the valley. So you got to position yourself to capture success emotions. All right. And you got to position yourself to create success emotions. All right. Now go to Numbers. We looked at Numbers chapter 14 and verse number 6. So let's go to Joshua chapter 1. Joshua chapter 1. Let's go back to where we started. Joshua chapter 1. And Joshua chapter 1. Joshua chapter 1 and verse number 10. Joshua chapter 1 and verse number 10. You got to prepare success images and emotions. Joshua chapter 1 and verse number 10. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourself. For within how many days? 3 days you're going to cross this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess it. Now notice what he said. He said, you're going to do it in 3 days. Verse 12, to the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God gives you rest and will give you this land. Your wives and your little ones and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan, but you shall cross before your brothers in battle array, all your valiant warriors, and shall help them until the Lord gives your brothers rest as he gives you, and they also possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Then you shall return to your own land and possess that which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise. Now look at verse number 16. Verse number 16. They answered Joshua, saying, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you. And he was with Moses. Now I want you to think for a moment now, when the children of Israel left Egypt, it was 600,000 men. 600,000 men. 40 years later, what's the largest group you've ever been in? Anybody ever been in a group where there was 100,000 people? Anybody ever been in a group that large? Anybody been in a group where there were 70,000 people? Now, sometimes at a football game, there's 75 or 80,000 people. And the folk in the stands are cheering. And it is so loud that the quarterback, the center, can't even hear the quarterback, and he's standing right behind him. It's a deafening roar. Can you imagine that level of emotion? Listen, if you walked into a gymnasium and there are 1,000 folk in there cheering, you just automatically gather a level of emotional excitement. Here is God's process. Words, images, and emotions. Let's say that together. Words, images, emotions. Say it again. Word, images, emotions. One more time. Words, images, emotions. That's how God gets us there. If we'll engage in spiritual meditation. We hear the words and then we speak them. We see the images, we create them. We capture the emotions and we create them. And out of our emotional intensity, we do some things we have never ever done before. See, here's how God created the physical body. There is something in the physical body called adrenaline. Adrenaline. And adrenaline will enable us to physically do things that otherwise we cannot do. Guess what? Spiritual meditation generates spiritual adrenaline. So not only are we able to physically do some things that we would never be able to do, we're able to mentally be able to do some things that we otherwise would never be able to do. God can get you there, but he cannot get you there unless you engage in spiritual meditation. If you'll engage in spiritual meditation, God can get you there. But if you don't engage in spiritual meditation, he can't get you there. And the only way he can get you there is you've got to participate. Words, images, emotions. Words, images, emotions. And that's how God brings us to the point of salvation. On the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, Peter was preaching. He said, you have crucified the Son of God. He painted the picture so clearly. And the Bible said they were what? Pricked in their hearts. They heard words. He painted the image of them crucifying the Son of God, and their emotional intensity, so they cried out, what shall we do? And then Peter said what? Repent and be baptized in water, every one of you, for the forgiveness of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. Can I give you a little secret? You will never do well what you are not emotionally excited about doing. You will never do well. Now, it's amazing. In school, children have difficulty learning their multiplication tables. Isn't that amazing? Most students have not learned, and neither have I, so this is not a bragging statement. I've never attempted to do it. I don't think. Years ago, they may have made us do it, but if they did, I've forgotten it. Learn the capital of all 50 states. But isn't that amazing? They remember every word to Snoop Dogg's song. They remember every word they remember every word. You know why? They got excited about that, and they didn't get excited about math. God will never get out of us what we're not emotionally connected and enthusiastic about. So today, if you are emotionally excited about being saved, it's not difficult to get you to trust Jesus as your resurrected Savior and be baptized for the forgiveness of sin. If you're excited about that, it's not difficult. In just a moment, we're going to be standing and singing the song 255 that says, I will call upon the Lord. And if you have not done what's necessary for your salvation, then now is the time. If you are watching us by Facebook, if you haven't come to that point of salvation and you need us to help you with greater information or any type of assistance at all, just let us know. We want to get you there and get excited. It's words, emotions. It's words, images, and emotions. Let's stand and sing 255. 255. I will call upon the Lord. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. The Lord, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of our salvation be exalted. Lord liveth, blessed be the rock, and let the God of our salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be saved.